Every year, football gets bigger and bigger. And in the lifetime of us, the fans, we've seen so much money trade hands on virtually everything. Players are valued in the hundreds of millions. Tinder sponsors Manchester City. Now, to the cynic, it seems like everything is for sale. But the case of jailed footballer Hakeem Al-Araibi, stuck in a Thai jail, football is currently trying to rediscover the value of the life of each and every footballer, regardless of their fame or value, that each one is as important as the next. So tonight on Beyond the Game, we'll attempt to look at the lives of those whose journey has not always been smooth, whose lives have not yet reached their goal, the lives of African footballers making their way around the world in pursuit of a dream that is so often crushed by those looking to make a quick buck. Every year, it's reported that from West Africa alone, 15,000 young men are being illegally led into Europe by men claiming to be football agents. It's a situation the United Nations says has the danger of creating a modern-day slave trade. Now, a major hub for their arrivals is France. It's suspected that 98% of those who make it to Paris end up as illegal immigrants. Between 2005 and 2015, a charity working on this crisis says that at least 7,000 cases of football trafficking were reported in France alone. In this time, there was an explosion of wealth in the game, but not for those hoping to fight this issue. Many agencies who attempt to assist these young men, they come and go. Constant funding is an issue, which makes policing it even harder. Paul Scott is here to show us how a crisis still flourishes in 2019 at the top of the European game.
Well, in recent years, FIFA have investigated a number of European clubs for a breach of the rules regarding transfers of underage players. Now, Chelsea are the latest being looked into, with more than 100 of the West London club's dealings under scrutiny. If they are found guilty, they could receive a transfer ban. 4 other Premier League clubs are also under investigation. Now in Spain, Barcelona, Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid have all been punished after their transfers were found to be in breach of FIFA rules. Of 183 transfers involving Atletico Madrid, 153 fell foul of the rules. Real Madrid broke the rules in 39 deals. For Barca, that figure was 31. Barcelona and Atletico were unable to sign any new players for 2 transfer windows. Real's punishment was reduced to 1 window on appeal. Although a number of Europe's clubs are being investigated and found guilty, that is the tip of the iceberg. At elite level, the clubs are regulated and punishments are handed down when rules are broken. But operating at a much lower level are unscrupulous agents luring African children away from their homes on the promise of non-existent trials or contracts, charging thousands of dollars for the privilege. The players are often then left abandoned in Europe or Asia. Without family, money or paperwork, they fall into the underworld and are further exploited. That's exactly what happened to Nigerian Matthew Adafe, who 20 years ago was stranded in Cape Verde for 11 months after his family sold their land in pursuit of his footballing dreams.
I had to survive. Now, it's a human thing. And once you realize that, okay, this thing is not what was intended, not what was planned, and this is fraud. This is somebody who's defrauded you. You move to the next phase. You have to survive. And survival means that, first off, you can't go to the police because, hey, you don't know what's going to happen. You're in a strange land. You're not in your comfort zone. You're not in your territory. You're in a place where there's a slight possibility that you could be locked up, and then you don't speak the language. So there's a whole lot standing in your way. So there's this proverb that my mom always said: to catch a monkey, you have to behave like a monkey. That was the thing that kicked in. There is something I read in a book. T.D. Jakes said that when the people know better, they will do better. The problem here is the fact that it's an educational thing. You understand? And it's an educational problem. It's not as if the problem cannot be solved. It's an educational problem because a lot of people don't even know what's the right way and what's the wrong way to go about traveling abroad. I eventually went abroad. I played in Sweden. I came back. I got injured. I came back. I understand what the right way is and what the wrong way is. I also understand right now that you're not supposed to pay an agent. Because as long as you refuse to pay an agent cannot defraud you, this football trafficking thing would never work. It is the money that they look to cash that is making all of this happen.
Let's bring in Laurent de Boek from the United Nations Migration Agency. Good to have you on the program. If you could just give us a very quick overview of what exactly your organization's role is.
Yes, the International Organization for Migration is an intergovernmental organization looking at how we can promote safe and orderly migration of people and working with partners at the governmental level as well as the civil society. So it touches all aspects of migration and dealing with people on the move.
How big of a problem is football trafficking, and are we even able to call it football trafficking, Laurent?
Well, we have noticed that indeed trafficking is quite large, and by promoting kind of selling dreams to people, a lot of young Africans in particular are victims of being attracted by people to join Europe and join a club. So basically some people are going and trying to recruit at very low price young footballers, telling them that soon they will join a very famous club and become a footballer world star. And so that's to us exploitation, because at the end of the day, they basically either come to a club and do not perform well, so they are thrown back in the street, or simply they never reach the club and they are stranded in a place or another without reaching even the final destination.
And what kind of mechanisms are currently in place to safeguard these youngsters who you've just called victims?
Well, it's a phenomenon particularly for football, which is not known enough. And so now we are developing a prevention campaign, informing the population, parents for sure, because their children are targeted, but children themselves. But at the end of the day, the parents are taking the decision. So informing them of those dangers. So that would be the best way. It's indeed looking at how they can make the right choice and not being attracted by those fake dreams. We are looking at how we can work with football federation at national and international level to raise also their awareness on the fact that this exists, and ever bringing into their management style an ethical approach in recruitment of young footballers.
Should the world governing body FIFA and invariably UEFA, where so many of the African footballers end up in Europe, should they be doing more on this issue?
No, certainly. We are approaching them, and we would like to develop with them a mechanism of control and monitoring of their administration in registering who is actually indeed recruited and how, and what are the conditions of work of those young footballers. But there is also another phenomenon. It's not only, and that I think we can on those federations we can work and have their commitment. But we also have people who are not necessarily affiliated to a football club, but they are just promoting the fact that they may join a club without having any reference and any possibility for them to actually join them. But they ask the parents to pay them a fee for bringing their child to those clubs, although it's completely fake.
Let's talk about that phenomenon you just mentioned with those unscrupulous agents. What personally would you like to see happen to these agents who basically sell these youngsters a dream and then disappear with their money?
Yeah, exactly. Now we are developing a mechanism with countries, actually based on United Nations protocol against smuggling and the one against trafficking, for penalties against those and law enforcement and investigations. So that relates to also exchanging information, data collection between countries, those of origin and as well as those of destination. So we have to work on these, and we are providing support to countries to actually exchange this information and investigate properly.
Laurent, all the best with the organization's work and the campaigns that lays ahead for you. Really appreciate that. Laurent de Boek from the United Nations Migration Agency. Appreciate your time and your insights. Thank you. And across Africa, unlicensed football academies have cropped up. Their plan appears to be to get young players out of Africa and into a club. But many times the trials they're supposed to attend don't even exist. In Istanbul, I caught up with some of the young men who are still fighting for their chance at the big time. Africa has long been a hot pot of footballing talent. Samuel Eto'o, Yaya Toure, Didier Drogba, names that need absolutely no introduction to a worldwide audience. And then there's everyone's favorite fantasy Premier League captain, Mohamed Salah. For a second year running, he's clinched the African Footballer of the Year award. And such has been the craze with the Liverpool forward that his fans are now even showing off his face on their heads. The big-name star's success abroad has inspired thousands of young footballers to chase their dreams too, with Europe as a preferred destination. But often unscrupulous agents have promised them trials and even contracts at clubs abroad, only to leave them high and dry. And so the dreamers became the victims. Jonathan Esale from the Ivory Coast is just one such example. The 21-year-old striker says he scraped together $6,000 to realize his dream of playing for a big club in Europe a month ago. It never materialized, and the agent was never heard from again.
It's very bad experience because people in Africa, they don't make very good things. They give you good promise, but when after you go, it is not the same promise. For my case, they promised me to go to Cyprus, North Cyprus, to play in a very good team, very good club. But when I arrived there, it's not the same, and they leave me alone.
Asala has since made his own way to Turkey and found a place in an Istanbul startup team, Conviction Dream. The side really are the new kids on the block. They're awaiting registration approval. But in the meantime, they've been allowed the use of these sports facilities in the Sefakor area near Istanbul's Ataturk airport. The squad is made up of 23 players, all of them from different parts of Africa. Not everyone here has had an unpleasant arrival.
My experience coming to Turkey was a good something, you know. And I really like the territory where I am in Turkey. It's a very good area. It's very hospitalized. You know, the people are good. And talking about soccer is very, very, very cool because they are welcoming, first of all, in soccer. And there are multiples of chances to evaluate. You know, that is why especially our manager took us from Dubai to come here in Turkey, because it believes that there are more opportunities in Turkey because a receiving area, a receiving country, a country of great, I believe, great ambitions for youth as we are.
Sefakor Kartal Sports Club is no Santiago Bernabeu. This is not Old Trafford. There aren't any fans in the stands, and this pitch probably wouldn't stand up to a FIFA inspection. Also, these footballers have to share their space with some feathery neighbours. But ask any of these players, and they'll tell you the one thing this ground does represent is an opportunity. The Conviction Dream Squad is a tight unit. And the players we spoke to say they are well aware of the effort needed to take the next step.
I'm hoping to get a better contract here to play football here because all my life it's about football. I eat football, drink football, sleep football. So leaving Africa to come here, I came here to find a greener pasture, so I was able to push my career forward.
And do you think you'll find that greener pasture?
Yeah, actually, I hope so, by the grace of God.
Football agent Jibril Bakala Kamara keeps a watchful eye on the progress of these players. He's hoping to link them with other clubs in Turkey for a slice of the transfer fee. Kamara swears he's one of the good guys.
I have good contacts with most of the amateur clubs in Istanbul. We organize football matches for these players and the games are being followed by many clubs. We give these players a chance to perform. If a club likes a player, we start to talk. The players do not pay me at all. If anything, I spend money to buy them equipment. I rent their pitch as well. We do not receive any money from these players. Look at the jerseys they are wearing. I paid for those. I had saved some money from work and I bought them the jerseys. If we can ever make a deal with a club one day, I'll hopefully make some money. I have a 10% commission fee for each player on this team.
Coach Mustafa Yildirim says he's aiming to get the best out of these players.
Hands come! Hands 3 times!
And sympathizes with some of their experiences in pursuit of professional football in Europe.
It is very difficult. They dream something in Istanbul, in Turkey. They think maybe in Turkey we come and we play very high. That's not a reality, you understand? In Africa, they dream maybe play in Europe, playing in Turkey, in Istanbul, but it is very difficult in Istanbul, in Turkey, to play high. For these players, they need license, player license they need, and also for staying here in Istanbul, they need papers. And after them, maybe we can transfer some players in some clubs.
While all of these footballers are hoping their careers will take off from here in a hurry, the more likely reality is they're in for a long wait. With the problem growing, what is FIFA's position? That's the big question. Is doing anything to resolve that crisis even on their agenda? Well, according to the football's governing body, the international transfer of players under the age of 18 is not allowed, but the ban doesn't prevent clubs from signing minors as unregistered academies, and agents often find ways to work around it. Well, here's a man who's actually been on the front line of football's search for the next Lionel Messi in Africa, traveling to some of the most remote parts on the continent. Let's say hello to Sebastian Abbott. He's the author of a book called The Away Games, The Epic Search for Soccer's Next Superstars. And I want to talk about your search in a moment. First, just, is what FIFA says in Zurich the reality of what's happening in Africa, in your opinion?
I mean, I think the reality is that, you know, FIFA took some steps in the mid-2000s, you know, to try and combat the trafficking of young African soccer players to Europe by raising the age to 18. You're not supposed to be able to transfer a player from Africa to Europe until they're 18. But the reality on the ground of many people that I spoke to is that, you know, it continues to happen, that clubs find ways around those rules or just break them outright. We've seen some clubs punished, as you mentioned, in Spain, and now clubs in the UK are being examined. So we'll have to see whether that has an impact on that illicit trade in young football players.
Sebastian, let's talk about your scouting journey. Where exactly did that search take you, and what is it that you found?
So my book, The Away Game, is about the largest talent search in football history, which was called Football Dreams. It was carried out by Qatar over a 10-year period, mostly in Africa. They held tryouts for over 5 million 13-year-old boys looking for football's next superstars. I spent about 5 months on the ground in West Africa as part of my research. I was in Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, and the Ivory Coast. And spent a lot of time, you know, traveling, meeting with the kinds of players you've been talking about on your show today, ones that are, you know, have spent their entire childhoods dreaming of making it to Europe and are just looking for any way they can possibly make that happen.
So what is it then that Africa has to do to hold on to these gems and not lose them to Europe in the midst of all these big dreams?
I mean, I think it's very challenging because, you know, they can make so much more money in Europe as players, not just in the big leagues, not just for teams like Barcelona or Manchester United, but the reality is they go to second-tier or third-tier footballing nations in Europe, and they can make much more than they can at home. I mean, the best players in many parts of Africa are just earning a few $100s a month. And so it's really difficult for them to see the reason to stay if they can make so much money, more money if they leave. And so there'd have to be sort of wholesale reform of the football industry back in Africa. There would have to be much more money available to the clubs, either through sponsorship, advertising, TV revenue, that kind of thing, to prevent these players from leaving.
That sadly is all of the time we have. Appreciate you sharing your experiences with us. Sebastian Abbott, author of a book called The Away Games, The Epic Search for Soccer's Next Superstars. Thank you so much. So, with the sheer amount of talent in the African game, we should remind ourselves that in the 2018 World Cup in Russia, not a single African team went past the group stages. It goes against Africa's quality all through the young levels of the game. Now, African nations dominate the World Youth Championships. Nigeria alone have won 5 World Cups at the under-17 level. That's more than any other country, while Ghana is not far behind them. On a club level, just 19 African football players have won the Champions League. Cameroon Samuel Eto'o, remember him? Well, he holds the record with 3 trophies with 2 different teams. But when it comes to international competitions, success is rare. Only 3 countries have managed to reach a World Cup quarter-final. The last one was Ghana. That was at the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. So, what does the future hold for the game in Africa? Let's talk to Calvin Onwuka. He's an African sports journalist. Good to have you on the program. We've spoken at length about the issues in African football. How do we make it all better, Calvin?
How long do we have? Frankly, the first thing with regards to this exploitation of young players and African players going into Europe at a very early age is it's economic migration. That's the long and short of it all. There are people, these are young boys who, they watch TV, they watch satellite TV, they watch all the, they watch their compatriots who have made success of playing in Europe. And their desire also is to go there, just go to Europe. I cannot tell you how many conversations I've had with young boys who all they are thinking of is, let me go abroad. Let me play, even if it's in Division 7, they say, of a club in Europe, as long as I'm able to make money. The African game does not have the kind of economic power to keep their talent at home. That's a big problem. That's one of the reasons why I was at Russia, I was at World Cup. I was also at World Cup 4 years ago in Brazil. That's one of the reasons why African teams are not able to bring something different to the table when they go to the World Cup. So African countries need to come back. We need to sit back, have a word with ourselves. CAF need to sit down and talk and find a way to bring in more money into African football. Until we're able to do that, until we're able to have our club competitions having the kind of economic power, having the kind of economic attraction that will keep players back home, we'll be discussing this in another 5-10 years. That's my main fear.
You spoke about CAF, the Confederation African Football Federation. What are they meant to do more than just, I mean, you spoke about the challenges about money, but should there be some sort of education drive for these young players not to be lured by these unscrupulous agents, Calvin?
I had Matthew earlier who experienced this. He spoke about education. Frankly, education cannot eliminate hunger. Because that's why I said from the top that this is an economic migration. As long as the players do not think that playing for a local club in their countries can meet their economic needs, they would want to go abroad. If the local clubs earn enough money to keep the players back home until they are scouted by the proper clubs, until that is able to happen, this thing will continue to happen. So CAF needs to find a way to speak to their member associations. We need to find a way to make our leagues attractive economically first. If we're not able to do that, we cannot keep players back home. I'm in touch with the league in Nigeria, and I know what happens, and I know why players want to leave Nigeria. Calvin, it's economic.
Is there the sense, though, that African players are getting harvested for fun by people who seemingly don't care much about the continent? We're nearly out of time, so just a very quick answer from you, please.
People don't care. They just want to see if they can make money. If they can, they will. They don't care about our continent.
I wish we could talk for so many more hours, but that is all of the time we have. We are absolutely going to continue to delve into this subject. Calvin Onwuka in London, thank you very much. Now, over the past half hour, we've delved deep into the ugly side of football's relentless search for the latest and greatest talents from Africa. So, as we say goodbye, let's remind ourselves of some of Africa's greatest contributions to the beautiful game. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.